Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my first Sword Art Online alternative Gun Gale Online anime review. This one's going to be for episode 1 of the anime, which is called Squad Jam. And so yeah, if you've been following my channel for any sort of time, you'll probably know that I did put up a review of the first volume of the alternative GGO manga when it came out. I think this is the only English release of either the light novels or the manga out right now. So I'm at least somewhat experienced with what alternative GGO is, and it can give you some sort of a contrast between how good of a job the anime did compared to some of the source material stuff with the manga. So yeah, this first episode was I think actually very good, and I think for the most part what I've seen in terms of reaction has been that the episode has been received fairly well. I think a lot of it depends as a Sword Art Online fan. Like, if you saw potential in the GGO game and you wanted to see more of that. Personally, I did, because I liked how the gunfights kind of changed things up. There was a little bit more of an element of sort of like just kind of raw tactics compared to SAO, where it was kind of like you know, RPG turn-based kind of tactics almost that they were using. Whereas here it was much more kind of military tactics, which I actually quite enjoy. So this episode being quite heavily focused on that, with the strategy between Len and and M especially pointing out a lot of the kind of tricks that the other teams are using, especially the team of combat pros that we learn about, the soldiers more or less. So I really like the premise for this. What the episode 1 I suppose didn't do was really give us too much of the kind of character dynamic of like, what are the stakes in this as such. Because like with original SAO, like the premise was immediately like, here's some characters, they get trapped in the game by this kind of villain, and how do we react to this? And we focus in on a character who actually has experience with the game because he did the beta test, and he's going to kind of help guide some of these kind of newer players forward in the game, and we just cut to like different sections of what he's doing. Here in the anime, we just jumped straight in. It's just these two people are teamed up. She's sort of inexperienced. He seems to be an expert. You'd almost go as far as to immediately speculate that, like, is he a combat kind of pro himself, or does he have some sort of real world training that assists him in this game? And like, how did they team up? How did they come together? What's the aim here? Very clearly, Len, who is the character on the cover here, is our main character. But like, what are we going for here? What's the arc? That's kind of what hasn't been presented just yet. Clearly she wants to become better at the game, and just I suppose the premise of her wanting to win and become more successful is a positive thing. Right at the end, I suppose it gives you like, oh, here is the real person whose avatar Lens is, and we find out that that is Karen. And I don't know if like first-time anime viewers were immediately aware of this, maybe not knowing some of the premise for this show, but that part of the idea of her character design is that she's actually very, very tall. She's much taller than anyone in her class. And maybe that was part of the weird translation, or just part of the reaction here at the end. But like, what seemed to be her classmates, I think, or were meant to take them as her classmates, calling her like Miss Karen. To some degree it was meant to maybe them just showing respect because they just watched her like win a match and do really well in the game. But maybe part of it is that because she's so tall, they kind of call her that. But they almost kind of tricked you into like, wait, are we kind of dealing with sort of like a kind of, not a kind of teenage character here? Such was the kind of way they referred to her. But if they're going to be really accurate to this, she is just this kind of teenage girl who's actually really tall and kind of in a way gets like bullied a little bit for that. And so her having such a completely different avatar in the game is this kind of complete break, release from the actual world of her getting to be this completely different character who's like the center of attention for like a different reason other than her height. That's why she wears all pink, has a pink gun, is super quick and stuff like that. And it's interesting because that's the difference between what the first episode of the anime did versus the manga. The manga, this volume specifically covers 5 chapters of the manga. The first 4 are like prologue stuff, which actually give you basically the context that explains more about basically what episode 1 of the anime was, which in the manga is what chapter 5 starts off. Chapter 5 is the start of the Squad Jam. And so in a way, episode 1 almost skips past like most of what volume 1 of the manga covers. It only really overlaps like right at the end. But I think that means we're probably going to get the prologue stuff, the setup stuff, in the next couple of episodes. I think the next episode's called GGO, which makes it seem like it's probably going to be the introductory episode, actually explaining a bit about GGO. And I think we'll have to introduce Karen to us, what the whole setup here is going on. Basically answer most of the questions that are really going to turn this into a series, and invest us properly in the characters outside of just seeing some really cool GGO action, which was definitely present in this episode. I really like seeing the kind of guns, the kind of marker lines come back, and the dodging of shots, kind of analysis of the different weapons that people have, flanking, the satellite scanning, pointing kind of different people out. That was all really cool and reminded you to a degree of what happened in the Death Gun arc with GGO, with like Kirito and Sinon, but in a slightly different way, because you take away the immediate like tension of stuff in the real world actually affecting things, and here it's more of just like we can focus on the game and just see who wins the game. And there's a certain niceness to that, of not everything not being like crazy high stakes and just like, okay, we're in a game and we're just seeing the characters try to be the best possible at the game. Other than that, I actually like some of the base kind of character dynamics. That like M is this clearly much more kind of veteran player, knows a lot more about the game, knows about guns, and so all of that comes together to more or less make him like this exceptionally knowledgeable character about the game, the perfect character to teach Len what she needs to know to get to where she needs to be. In that they're clearly setting her up as like she has the potential to be excellent at this game, because she's already in like the build that she sort of needs to be. She has the right gun for the kind of type of class that she's trying to play, of just a small kind of high rate of fire gun. She's really quick. She acts as the decoy, so she wears the bright clothes and kind of can follow orders very well as well. It's got to be about, I suppose, how she develops and learning how to like act on her own. Like, what if M was ever taken out? Would she be able to do anything on her own? And that's, I suppose, part of what we're going to explore going forward as we deal with her advancement within the game. Just seeing her kind of that kind of 50-50 thing throughout the episode, of like half of the time she feels like somewhat confident about what's going on, she's completely calm about what's happening, but then there are occasions where she kind of panics. So I like that to a degree, in that it's showing that she's good at the game, but needs someone to kind of calm her down at times right now. She hasn't fully got to the point where she can control things on her own. And I suppose, well, as maybe the series progresses, we'll probably see some of that panicking kind of disappear, and maybe she'll know exactly what to do herself, like when she's hiding behind the tree and starts to panic and so on. So I liked that. I really liked the kind of tactics where they start discussing the team of combat pros, and the idea that there's a repelling skill within the game, but those guys were doing it so much quicker than anyone in the actual game could, because clearly they know how to do it in real life. So the skill plus real life makes it even more quicker. And just how he was pointing out to Len, look at what they're doing. They're completely taking out these other teams who are maybe organized to a degree, but not to their level. Look how effortlessly they managed to take out all these other teams. And he's just analyzing them and knows exactly what they're doing. But then when it comes down to the final scene where Len takes everyone out, basically, and forces the team to resign, more or less, I like his explanation of like, look, there's no reason for them to stick around anymore because they just want to get the training benefit out of this. The game is just like a training tool for them. They don't necessarily care massively about winning it. If winning it got them the like training that they needed, they'd do it. But they just want to use this as a kind of like VR combat simulation type thing. So the second like they are sort of bested by what in essence is like M and Len sort of taking advantage of some of the like video game aspects of this that's not so simulation, you can sort of see where they don't get the benefit anymore of like a dead body is an immortal object in this game. That doesn't really apply to real life all that much. There's this tiny girl who's able to like travel like 3 times as quick as anyone else. When would that ever happen in real life? And so they realized that like, okay, we were taken out, but it was by people like using the fact that this is like a fantasy video game and using some of those things to their advantage. I suppose in the same way that if they came up across like Kirito and he started like charging them with his like laser sword thing, and just cutting their bullets apart and then like defeated them all in that way, they would be like, that's never going to happen in real life. Like that, there was no benefit to us in that way. So, that was a cool like we're focused on the game here, but here is a real world kind of group of kind of combat veterans using this to get more training, but also showing that because it's also a video game, there are some aspects of it where they're not going to get that training out of. So like they probably actually got a good benefit out of taking down that team of machine gunners who are just going to open fire on anything they see. They don't care about their ammo, they're not the most well trained, but it's still sort of like a dangerous operation and they have to sneak up on them well and take them by surprise. So they got benefit out of that and maybe some of the other teams, but not so much Len basically as a character, because she's just kind of so in a way over the top because she's tiny, she's super quick, and they did some very unexpected things there. It was clever though. I think she did honestly like take 1 or 2 of them out just by complete surprise, by hiding in the suitcase and then popping out and taking out 1 or 2 of them. But it was I suppose her being able to take out the other 2 then after that is probably what she wouldn't have been able to do if it weren't for like bodies become immovable, like invincible cover basically and stuff like that. But I'm interested to see where they go, because the interesting thing with especially where the manga ends and stuff like that is it doesn't really seem like the squad jam is necessarily what we're going to focus on, because they kind of just immediately kind of cut out of it back to the real world once she had taken out those 4 kind of combat guys. It made it feel like that was kind of her highlights from the tournament. And after that, now that they've won or placed very well in the tournament, we go back into the real life, and now Karen is popular or getting popular, or something like that. It kind of feels like, oh, are we setting up to do like a much bigger tournament? In that this almost didn't feel like it was any sort of a major tournament. Like it was almost just them playing a game of PvP rather than any sort of a like big tournament type thing. So I do feel they're probably more using this as setup for like a secondary tournament or something like that. But I think there should still be like 6 or 7 teams left in the tournament that we're in. I don't know if we're going to remain focused on this or not, because obviously where I'm up to in the manga, I don't know where it goes after this. Because basically like the furthest into it that the manga goes is basically where this 1 episode ends, because the first couple of pages kind of do show you her taking everyone out at the end, and then we flash back to kind of how she got to this moment. So I actually don't know where the series goes after this. So very, very positive on the first episode so far. I thought it was animated well, and the only thing I suppose I'm waiting for is just how the anime actually goes about doing the actual character sort of motivation type stuff. How the characters met up, more or less establishing how this episode actually came to take place. That's what I'm looking for right now, but the action was very good, and I'm excited to see where it goes. So very positive about it so far. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this first episode of SAO alternative GGO. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.